To the Numbers Game, the show where analytics meets the action and data drives the decisions. I'm Cynthia Frelund, and together we'll dive deep into the stats that define the remaining 13 games on the Week 17 NFL slate and uncover how the numbers make all the difference. It's not just about what happens, it is about why it happens and how the numbers help tell the story. I hope you had a great holiday week so far. Due to popular demand, we're going to have our special guest come back on to help out with this week's menu of bland and spicy ingredients. Our family tradition is lasagna on Christmas. It's actually our family's special recipe. So despite both her and I doing a lot of cooking and still being extremely full, we will be sure to make this week the best recipe to date. I know it is the holiday season and I know you are extra busy, which makes me even more appreciative of you choosing to spend some of your time and energy with me. Oh, and D, D, C, and K, you guys are the freaking best, and it is not even close. Let's have a look back before we move forward. In week 16, my model went 11 wins and 5 losses straight up, 8.5 and 7.5 ATS, and 7 and 9 on totals. With only 2 weeks of the regular season left to go, I'm at 70.4% straight up, 52.9% ATS, and 50.6% on totals. Guys, we get Saturday games, 3 of them to be exact, so let's start there with the Chargers at the Patriots. LA is a 4-point road favorite, and the total is 42.5 points. If the Bolts win, they're into the playoffs. To be precise, they would also get in this week should both the Colts and Dolphins lose as well. Passing from a clean pocket is one of the ways I measure the best a quarterback can do. Like, what's the potential here? Well, for Justin Herbert, he's the only signal caller with 0 interceptions thrown from a clean pocket this season, along with 14 touchdowns. He's averaging the 8th most yards per pass when not under pressure, along with the 9th most EPA per dropback. Even though he's trending towards career lows in terms of pass attempts and passing yards per game, he's at 28.7 attempts and 216.2 yards. He's averaging career highs in yards per attempt and passer rating at 7.5 and 98.4 respectively. Oh, and he only needs 153 yards to pass Peyton Manning for the most yards in a player's first 5 seasons in NFL history. The Patriots rank 4th lowest in pressure rate as well, getting after quarterbacks on less than 30% of dropbacks. Speaking of streaks, Drake May has 1 or more interception in 7 straight games, which is the longest streak since Drew Bledsoe in 1997. Okay, that was for the segue and for a fun fact to tell your friends, because we all know Drake May has been a bright spot on this team and on the season in general. One area to highlight is on the sub-10 air yard passes, where he's averaged 6.6 yards per attempt, the 6th most. He has an over 56% success rate, also ranking 6th best, but this matchup is hard on those type of passes because LA has only allowed 5.4 yards per attempt on these short passes. That is 3rd fewest in the league. One more thing, the Patriots have started 9 different offensive line combinations, allowing a 41% pressure rate on their quarterbacks. Both of those numbers are the most in the NFL. Bottom line, the Chargers win 23-18, and Los Angeles winning ranks 6th of the 16 games in confidence. Also, we have not talked enough about Derwin James on this show, so here's a fact about him. He is one of just 2 players to play at least 10% of their snaps on the line of scrimmage, as a slot corner, as a safety, and as a linebacker this season. He leads all defensive backs with 18 pressures on 56 pass rushes. Game 2 on Saturday takes us to Paycor Stadium, where the Broncos come to town to face the Bengals. If Denver wins, they get in, whereas Cincinnati must win or else they're eliminated. The home team Bengals are 3.5-point favorites, and the total for the game is set at 50 points. Patrick Surtain is currently tracking as the number 1 corner in the league this season per win share, and the Bronco is being actively avoided by opposing offenses to the tune of only targeting a receiver in his coverage on about 10% of snaps, the 2nd lowest rate in the league at his position. When he has been targeted, he has a 24% ball hawk rate. That is the 2nd highest among corners. He's been targeted in zone coverage on under 8% of coverage snaps. That is the lowest rate. Should we, the fans, get the pleasure of a Jamar Chase versus Pat Surtain matchup, it is strength on strength because Chase paces the league with 1,142 receiving yards against zone coverage, with 385 of those coming over expected and 228 as yak over expected. By the way, both of those numbers, all league bests. There are a lot of areas that we pointed to as points of vulnerability for the Bengals defense, and they're fair. But Lou Anarumo is scheming and adjusting, and one area, other than Trey Hendrickson, that is a big positive, the short pass defense. The Bengals have allowed the third fewest EPA per short pass, the fourth fewest yards per short pass, it's just 5.8, and have 7 interceptions on these sub 10 air yard attempts. That is the most interceptions in the league. The rookie quarterback they'll face has used a short pass on over 40% of his attempts, and Bo Nix ranks 26th among 32 qualified quarterbacks in yards per attempt on them and 27th in EPA per short pass. Only 9 quarterbacks have a sub 50% success rate on short passes, and Bo Nix is one of them. Advantage, Cincinnati defense. Bottom line, I have the Bengals keeping their playoff hopes alive by the slimmest of margins. Bengals 25, Broncos 24. Cincy winning ranks 4th of 16 in confidence, in part because the Broncos defense gets very effective pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They have the second highest rate of pressure and the most sacks with 51. Joe Burrow's completion percentage drops over 20 percentage points when pressured, and he's taken the second most quarterback hits in the league at 105. Saturday's slate finishes with an NFC West showdown. The Rams are a 6-point favorite, and the total in this one is set to 48.5. Kyler Murray has attempted about 16% of his passes outside of the pocket. I would have expected this ranking to be top 5, but it's actually surprisingly 11th. He's completed about 58% of such passes, which is the 5th highest rate, for 8.2 yards per attempt. He has the 4th highest success rate on such passes as well. The Rams have struggled to defend passes outside the pocket, allowing the second highest completion percentage on them at 64% and a league-high 8.9 yards per attempt. Matthew Stafford using play action is basically a cheat code. He's used it at the 6th highest rate, and overall this season has the second most EPA per dropback when using it. It's 0.39 EPA per dropback. However, I bring up this precise number because it's gone up to 0.57 EPA per dropback since Puka Nacua returned from injury in Week 8. Stafford also has 8 touchdowns and 0 picks on play action over that span. And guess what? That is also the best in the NFL. The Cardinals defense has allowed the 5th highest success rate on play action, along with the 6th most yards per play action attempt at 9.2. Bottom line, I really hope that my TNF projections of the Seahawks winning are already correct by the time you're listening to this, because my model has the Rams by 7, 27-20, and LA winning ranks 6th of the 16 games in confidence, which means that I have a winner-take-all Seattle and LA scenario happening, which would be such a great game, and I think we all deserve that. One area to watch is if the Cardinals can get pressure on Matthew Stafford. He has the 5th worst passer rating under pressure this season, but the Cardinals defense has the 8th lowest pressure rate. There is something to keep an eye on, not that we are ever looking ahead to anything, but should the pressure be an issue here, could be a forecast for next week. Let's do our Synth AI list on the Saturday games. Just a reminder of what this is. Instead of us asking a question and getting an answer from a trained AI model, we flip that paradigm on its head and answer 3 questions asked by an AI model that I trained to scour the internet for relevant questions, which are mapped to line movements. AI question 1. What is more likely, Joe Burrow to throw for more than 2.5 touchdowns or Bo Nix to throw for more than 1.5? AI answer 1. Joe Burrow has a streak going of 3 or more touchdown passes in 7 games now. And the Bengals offense, they are on pace in terms of historical franchise relevance for passing and scoring. But my model has 1.85 passing touchdowns for Burrow, while Bo Nix is at 1.6. Burrow tops 2.5 touchdowns in just 42% of my simulations, which does indicate upside, while Nix's potential to surpass 1.5 falls nearly into the bland projection level at 52%. AI question 2. What is more likely, Drake May to rush for more than 28.5 yards or Justin Herbert to rush for more than 14.5 yards? AI answer 2. 2 things to know here. Number 1, J.K. Dobbins has been limited in practice so far this week. His return was factored into my calculations. And 2, the Chargers defense have given up 5 yards per carry over their past 3 games. My answer is I have May earning 25 and Herbert with 33. May gets to at least 29 in 46% of simulations, and Herbert goes over 15 in bland territory at 56%. AI question 3. What is more likely, Cooper Kupp to have more than 49.5 receiving yards or Marvin Harrison Jr. to have more than 48.5? AI answer 3. I have Kupp with 52 yards and Harrison with 57. Kupp has 11 total receptions over his past 4 games, and his average is 33.3 yards. Harrison's 4-game average is 15 total catches and 45 yards per game. I just want to give the context. But here's the difference. I have outside the pocket passes and game script driving an uptick in opportunity for Harrison Jr. more than for Kupp's situation. I have the Rams leveraging the run more, playing with a win. but I do have both players exceeding their numbers. It's just that Harrison Jr. has better odds. It's crazy that we'll have already played 6 games before Sunday even starts. Let's start with the Sunday slate with an AFC team that needs to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, and that is the Colts, who head to MetLife to square off against the Giants. If the Giants lose both of their remaining games, they will secure the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Colts are 8-point road favorites, and the total is 40.5 points. Jonathan Taylor has earned 179 rushing yards over expected this season. That's the 6th most at the running back position. Quarterback Anthony Richardson has 150 such yards. That is 3rd most at his position. The Giants' defense has allowed the most rushing yards over expected to running backs by nearly 200 yards. They've allowed 429 RYOE to backs overall, which is 191 more than the next closest team. Additionally, they've allowed the 4th most rushing yards over expected to quarterbacks at 110. The Giants' big offseason trade acquisition from last year, Brian Burns, has generated a team-leading 57 pressures this season. Last week, he actually was held to 0 pressures on 19 pass rushes, which is a little bit wild. But he splits time between the left and right edge almost evenly, so look for New York to find the matchup that they like best for him this week. Bottom line, I have the Colts winning 23-16, and Indianapolis winning ranks 4th of the 16 games this week in confidence. New York fans, fast forward about 15 seconds. Everyone else, the Giants have lost 10 consecutive games and are winless in 8 tries at home so far this season. 1974 was the only season where the G-Men didn't win a single game at home. We could add 2024 to that should they lose this one. The final AFC team who needs to win to even have a shot and could technically be eliminated by the time this game even starts is the Dolphins, who play the Browns in Cleveland. Here's the deal. If the Chargers and Broncos both win on Saturday, then the Dolphins are done before they even kick off. For Miami to make the playoffs, they need to win out, and then they need either both the Chargers and Broncos to lose out, or the Chargers to lose out and the Colts to lose at least one, or the Broncos to lose out and the Colts to lose at least one of their remaining games. Got all that? Okay, perfect. Just know it's not super probable. The Dolphins are 6.5-point favorites, and the total is 40 points. We've talked a lot about pieces of the Miami offense this season, but let's talk about the Dolphins' run defense, which has allowed the fewest yards before contact in the league at 0.3 per rush. They're also the only defense that's allowed a total of fewer than 100 yards before contact this season, like total together in sum. It's only 94 yards. Jerome Ford has averaged 9.8 yards per rush since taking over for Nick Chubb post-injury in Week 15. That is, unsurprisingly, the highest average in the league. He also has 112 RYOE over that span. That is 2nd most. Stopping or even slowing down the run game would be a big advantage for the Dolphins' defense over the Browns' offense by making them one-dimensional and forcing them to pass. Let's do a Myles Garrett stats check-in. He has 71 pressures, that's 3rd, a 19.5% pressure rate, that's 2nd, and 28% of the Browns' pressures and 33% of their sacks. Both rates are the 2nd highest team shares in the league. He also has 12 sacks, which means he's had 10 or more sacks in 7 of his first 8 seasons. Only the Hall of Famer Reggie White had more with all 8 seasons. Bottom line, I have the Dolphins with a 6-point win, 24-18. Miami winning ranks 8th of the 16 games. Some of the uncertainty involved here in a closer game is because of the potential for them to be already eliminated before kickoff. Fun fact here, Devon Achane and Jonnu Smith lead the Dolphins with 76 receptions each this season. Across the entire NFL, only 5 non-wide receivers have 75 or more receptions, and 2 of them play for the Dolphins. The Browns currently hold the 4th pick in the 2025 draft. Sandwiched around the Browns are the Jags, who currently hold the 3rd pick in the draft, and the Titans, who are currently slated to pick 5th. These 2 AFC South foes match up in Duval. Jags are 1-point home favorites, and the total in this one is 40 points. Mason Rudolph again gets the start this week for the Titans. In the 2 games he's played so far, he has a 73% completion rate and a 58% success rate. Over this tiny sample size, they rank 4th and 3rd best respectively. More helpful for predictive metrics is that he's earned 410 yards with 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions against zone. The Jags have allowed the 4th most EPA per dropback and 3rd most yards per attempt at 8.1 when they use zone. My point here is that there's lots of upside for Rudolph, but also some downside. Zone coverage is also important on the other side of the ball. Brian Thomas Jr. has 3 straight games with 80-plus receiving yards against zone. For the season, he has the fourth most yards against this coverage in the whole league at 832. He also has a 10.9 receiving yard per target average, that is fourth most, and 80 of his 86 receiving yards in Week 14 against the Titans came when they played zone. Overall, the Titans play zone at the fourth highest rate in the league, over 77% of the time. Bottom line, I have the Jags winning this one 22-20, but Jacksonville winning ranks very low in certainty at 12 of the 16 games. There's one more matchup this week between teams slated to pick in the top 10 in the NFL draft, and that's when the Raiders, who are at number 6 right now, head to New Orleans to face the Saints, who are currently set to pick 10th. Can we just make a quick argument to at least consider Brock Bowers as the Offensive Rookie of the Year? He has done incredible things under really tough circumstances. Here's my list for this week about Bowers. Number 1, he needs 10 receiving yards to pass the great Mike Ditka for the most by a rookie tight end. Ditka's number was 1,076. 2, he needs 5 receptions to break the rookie receptions record that Puka Nacua set at 105 catches. And then 3, here's his slot stuff. Over 56% of his routes have been run from the slot. That's 10th most among tight ends. And his 93 receiving yards over expected from the slot is the most at the position. The Saints have also allowed 8.7 yards per target to tight ends aligned in the slot, and that is the fourth most in the league. Bottom line, Raiders win 20-17, and Las Vegas winning ranks 13 of the 16 games this week in confidence. The Saints have not finished a season with fewer than 7 wins since 2005, and right now they're at just 5. This is a great time for our second list, the top end touchdown scorers. 5 big names who forecast for big games and a trip or so to the end zone. Number 1, Kyren Williams against the Cardinals. Let's go way back to that Saturday slate here. His 15 scrimmage touchdowns are tied for the second most among running backs, and he leads the NFL with 30 scrimmage touchdowns since the beginning of 2023. Number 2, Devon Achane. Achane has 6 games with 100-plus scrimmage and at least 1 touchdown this season. Number 3, Jonathan Taylor against the Giants. Taylor has 5 career games with 150-plus rush yards and 2-plus rushing touchdowns, the most in Colts history. Number 4, Bijan Robinson. We haven't done this game yet, but he reaches pay dirt in 67% of simulations. Also, I have a good running back theme going, and Robinson has 10 total touchdowns, along with 100-plus scrimmage yards in 9 of his last 10 games, so let's stick with the theme. And number 5, Saquon Barkley against the Cowboys. He needs 268 yards to break Eric Dickerson's record of 2105, meaning he needs to average 134 per game. It is possible the end zone could actually get in the way of that number in this one. Just kidding. However, he does have 6 games with over 134 yards this season. He gets in the end zone at least once in 94% of my models. Which brings us to the Cowboys at the Eagles, a game where, as of right now, both Philadelphia quarterbacks are uncertain. Jalen Hurts is in the concussion protocol, and Kenny Pickett has a ribs injury, though as of the last practice report, he technically was just limited. The Eagles are still 8.5-point home favorites, and the total is 41.5 points in the game. If the Eagles win or the Commanders lose to the Falcons this week, then Philadelphia officially wins the NFC East. In the past 3 games since the Cowboys and Eagles played the first time, Cooper Rush has completed 17 of 27 downfield passes for 328 yards and 6 touchdowns with no interceptions. His 16% completion percentage over expected is the 3rd highest in the league over that span. He also has averaged 12.1 yards per attempt, that's 8th most. And why am I bringing all of this up? Well, he completed exactly 0 downfield passes in Week 10's loss to Philly. This will again be a tough matchup for Rush because the Eagles defense has held opponents to their 3rd fewest yards per attempt and the 5th lowest completion percentage over expected, with 9 of their 10 interceptions coming on downfield attempts. Since the quarterback position is a question mark as of now, let's just go with a Saquon note here. His 57% rushing success rate in Week 10 was his 3rd highest in a game this season. Overall, he's averaging 1.7 rushing yards over expected per carry. That's 2nd most among running backs. And he's earned 10 or more yards on 13% of carries. That's the 6th highest rate at the position. Dallas has allowed the 7th highest rushing success rate, the 10th most yards after contact per carry to backs this season, and a bunch of explosive runs. Bottom line, I have this modeled with Jalen Hurts, as the 8.5 point line makes me think that's what's expected. My score with Hurts is 28-17 Eagles. This would rank second of the 16 games in confidence. The confidence and the score would all change if it's not Hurts. I modeled it with Pickett, and the delta is 4 points, still in favor of the Eagles due to the combination of the Eagles defense and Saquon Barkley on the ground. If we have another quarterback in the mix, and they did sign Ian Book to the practice squad, then I will post any changes should they happen. One important note here overall is that Dallas and Philadelphia's defenses rank 1 and 2 in sacks since week 6, so keep that in mind should it not be Hurts when making your assumptions about the potential in the passing game or receiving game if you're looking at receivers. One assumption I am fine making is that Mike Evans is in a great spot this week against the Panthers, because you know Baker Mayfield wants to help him extend his 1,000-yard streak. Carolina heads to Tampa as 8-point underdogs, and the total is 49 points. Bryce Young is one of just 4 qualified quarterbacks to have thrown more interceptions than touchdowns from a clean pocket this season. He has 8 picks to only 7 scores. Just so you know, the others are Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, and Dak Prescott. This is actually kind of fascinating and good for another pod. Keep that in mind. But Young has completed just 65% of his clean pocket attempts, which is the 5th lowest, and averaged only 5.4 yards per attempt. That is the fewest when not under pressure this season. However, this is a good spot for his numbers to improve. The Bucs have allowed a 74% completion rate when not generating pressure, which is the 3rd highest rate in the league, and they only have 3 interceptions, tied for 3rd fewest. On the other side of this matchup, Baker Mayfield also has a passing game advantage. Mayfield has attempted the 4th highest rate of passes behind the line of scrimmage this season. It's 25%. This is also the highest rate of such passes in his career. That's not surprising. He's earned the most yards off of these passes with 916. That is 122 more than the next closest player. The Panthers have allowed the 3rd most yards per pass attempt behind the line of scrimmage at 6.5 per, and the 2nd most yak over expected on such passes. Bottom line, the Bucs win 28-19, and Tampa taking this one ranks 3rd in confidence. The Bucs aren't out of the playoffs, although last week's loss wasn't great for their odds. However, Carolina has allowed the most points per game in the league at 29.9 per game, along with the most first downs at 23.5 per game. Baker Mayfield has 10 games with 2 or more passing touchdowns. That is 2nd in Bucs history to only Tom Brady. Oh, and an AI question that came up for this one was between rushing numbers for Chuba Hubbard at 73.5 yards or Bucky Irving at 77.5. I have both surpassing those numbers, but Irving with greater odds of exceeding his number. He has 10 games this season where he's forced at least 5 missed tackles, and his 37% forced missed tackle rate is the highest in the NFL. Bucky Irving and the Bucs' rushing effectiveness may be a surprise based on what we thought ahead of the season, but I don't think Bills fans or any of the rest of us are surprised that James Cook has become what he has this season. Maybe the touchdown totals of 14 rushing and 16 overall, which are tied for the league lead, are a little higher than expected, but Cook, being a very valuable part of the game plan, has tracked all season long and in the preseason too. The Bills host the Jets, and Buffalo is a 9.5-point favorite. The total in this one is 46.5 points. Aaron Rodgers has the 4th fastest time to throw this season at 2.66 seconds, and he attempts the 2nd highest rate of passes in under 2.5 seconds. To round out his quick passing stats, he has the 3rd most yards off of them at 1,724 with 10 touchdowns. However, he's only completed 69% of them, which is the 5th lowest rate. This is an interesting source of yards, but not necessarily success for the Bills' opponents as well, as the defense has allowed the 5th most yards on quick passes, but Buffalo is tied for the 4th most interceptions on them. Josh Allen has earned the 2nd most EPA per intermediate pass this season, along with 8 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, which is the best ratio in the league. Remember, these are 10 to 19 air yard passes. The Jets defense has allowed the most EPA per intermediate pass with 6 touchdowns and no picks. Bottom line, I have the Bills winning by 12, 29-17, and Buffalo winning ranks number 1, so 1st in confidence on the week. One of the big main drivers of this delta is the run game, especially on inside rushes, where Buffalo has the most EPA per carry, the 3rd most rushing yards over expected per attempt, and Josh Allen's legs. The Jets have allowed the 4th highest success rate and have the 3rd highest missed tackle rate on such rushes. Which brings us to our weekly wild cards. You know the drill. These are not the biggest names at their position. They weren't early round fantasy football picks, but this week they have elevated end zone reaching odds based on their matchups. Number one, Devontae Adams against Buffalo. The Bills' secondary has some flaws that the Patriots, Lions, and Rams showed us. Not Christian Benford, but other areas are gettable. And my forecast game script increases Adams' volume. Number two, Tyrone Tracy against Indianapolis. Last week against the Falcons, he had the most yak, as in yards after the catch, of any player in the game on both sides. Jonathan Taylor isn't the only running back in this one with relevant end zone reaching odds. Number three, Tyreek Hill against Cleveland. Okay, maybe you did draft him high in fantasy, but he only has 6 touchdowns and 834 yards this season, so he definitely counts here. I really, really like his yards to exceed 58.5 as well. Number four, Cortland Sutton against Cincinnati. Left tackle Garrett Bowles has a tough matchup with Trey Hendrickson, but Bowles has allowed just one sack and the lowest pressure rate among left tackles at 4.5%. And when he's allowed a pressure, it's taken more than 3.1 seconds, which means a better chance for Bo Nix to find Sutton. And number five, Isaac Arendo against Detroit. I know he's currently listed as questionable with a hamstring, but he's trending up, and the situation, along with who his play caller is, creates a lot of upside. Which brings us to the Monday Nighter in Santa Clara. It's technically a rematch of the NFC Championship game from last season, but injuries to San Francisco all season and to Detroit more recently have taken a little bit of the venom out of this one. By the time the Lions and Niners kick off, they will know the result of the Packers and Vikings. And if Green Bay wins, the Lions could be playing for the NFC North crown, as well as the number one seed in the entire NFC. The Lions are 3.5-point road favorites, and the total is 51 points. Jahmyr Gibbs has earned at least 10 yards on over 16% of carries. That's the highest rate in the NFL. He's reached 15 miles an hour on 25% of carries, which is the second highest rate. The Niners have allowed 3.6 yards after contact per carry to running backs since week 10. That is the fourth most in the league. George Kittle now has 484 yards after the catch. That's second most among tight ends. He also has the second most yak per reception, the second best yak success rate, and the most yak over expected on the season. Bottom line, my model has Detroit winning by 3 points, 26-23, and the Lions winning ranks 11th of the 16 games this week. The Lions blitz is a factor to track in this one. Since losing Aiden Hutchinson in week 7, they have the second highest blitz rate overall. They blitz on every down too. There are only 2 teams to rank in the top 5 in blitz percentage on every single down, and Detroit is one of them. The Niners have allowed pressure at the 5th highest rate when opponents have blitzed, and they're one of just 6 teams to allow pressure on more than half of opponent blitzes. Detroit has a lot of missing pieces on defense, so effective blitzing is a key for Detroit to win. Speaking of blitzing, the most impactful game of the entire week in terms of playoff positioning is very likely the Packers at Vikings. Minnesota is a 1-point home favorite, and the total in this one is 49 points. Fun fact, in their week 4 matchup where the Vikings won by 2 points, Sam Darnold completed all 6 of his passes when the Packers blitzed him for 89 yards and a touchdown, and Jordan Love went 16 of 25 for 157 yards, a touchdown, and 2 of his 3 total interceptions when he was blitzed by the Vikings. Jordan Love now has 0 interceptions in 5 straight games after having at least 1 per game in each of his first 8 games. If Green Bay is going to keep Love from turning the ball over, getting Josh Jacobs going is a smart plan. Jacobs has forced 44 missed tackles over the past 6 weeks alone. That's 4 more than the next closest player. He has 92 total on the season. That is tied for the second most in the league. And his production over the past 5 games has been a huge help in reducing turnovers. But this is a tough matchup because the Vikings have the 3rd lowest missed tackle rate over the same time period at just 10%. The Vikings defense has blitzed at the highest rate in the NFL at over 40% and allowed the 7th fewest EPA per dropback when blitzing. Jordan Love has the 26th ranked EPA per blitz dropback and ranks 23rd in yards per pass against the blitz. Bottom line, you know how I pointed out that the Vikings have the 3rd lowest missed tackle rate since week 11? Well, the Packers defense, they actually rank 2nd in this metric at only missing tackles 9.5% of the time in the run game. Forcing Sam Darnold into more uncomfortable passing situations is part of what drives a 1-point upset in my model, with the Packers winning 23-22. Green Bay winning ranks 15th of the 16 games in confidence, though, which means it is very uncertain. To round out the argument here, Sam Darnold has the best passer rating against the blitz, but the Packers blitz at the 3rd lowest rate. Darnold has also been sacked 45 times. That's tied for the third most, and he's taken 10 unblocked sacks, which is second only to Caleb Williams. Last but not least, the Falcons head to DC for a date with the Commanders. This matchup between two rookie quarterbacks drafted in the top 10 has major playoff implications. If Washington wins, they earn a trip to the postseason. If Atlanta wins and Tampa loses, then they win the NFC South and host a playoff game. Washington is a 4-point home favorite, and the total is 47.5 points. Last week against the Giants in his NFL debut, Michael Penix Jr. completed all 6 of his passes against split safety coverage for 49 yards and a 20% CPOE. He went 12 of 20 for 153 and an interception against single high. The Commanders' defense is third best at limiting opposing passers' completion percentage when using split safety coverages, though, so it could be a tougher outing for Penix this go-round. Washington's defense also ranks 5th best at not missing tackles in the run game. They actually rank 3rd overall in not letting opposing offenses be elusive against them, so not missing tackles. They've only missed a tackle at an 11.4% rate. This will be a key in this matchup because Bijan Robinson has forced 99 missed tackles, which is the most in the NFL and tied for the 4th most by any player through 16 weeks since we've been able to track this metric. Bottom line, even though the Falcons defense has been better at both pressuring and forcing turnovers as of late, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders offense has the advantage. Daniels has a 76% completion percentage and 106.4 passer rating when not pressured, and his rushing potential makes it less likely that Atlanta's defense will be able to get them into one-dimensional downs, and they're just tracking at the 3rd lowest pressure rate. Washington wins 28-22, and the Commanders winning ranks 5th in confidence. Okay, she's back. My mom. It's time for our spicy and bland menu for this week. Let's do the bland one first. So Here's what we're going to do. Remember, these are props that happen in at least 55% of my simulations. I'm going to name them, and you're going to say some analysis on if you think they're going to happen or not.
All right.
Sound like a good game?
Got it.
Okay. Number 1. Mike Evans to have more than 77.5 receiving yards against Carolina. Remember, he needs 182 yards in the final 2 games to extend his streak of seasons with 1,000 or more receiving yards to 11. He needs 91 per game in order to make that happen. Does he get more than 77.5 yards?
Absolutely. He is an awesome player. I've watched him play, and he's great, and I'm rooting for him.
Okay, that's a lot of seasons with 1,000 yards.
Yes, he has had
10 of them.
10.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is.
So we're going yes on that one.
It's an absolute yes.
Number 2, Calvin Ridley to have more than 59.5 receiving yards against Jacksonville. Okay, his old team. The Jags defense is 2nd worst at generating pressure, and Ridley has surpassed this number in 7 of his last 9 games.
Wow.
Do you think he's going to do it?
I do.
You do?
I do, because he's on a roll.
He's on a roll.
And I think once you're on a roll, he will do it.
Once you're on a roll, you keep rolling.
I agree.
I love it. Okay.
You smell good.
I smell good?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay.
Perfume.
Bland number 3, Jared Goff to pass for more than 250.5 yards against San Francisco. I have him forecast for 271. The Lions are the only team to use play action on over 1/3 of their dropbacks. They do it on 37%. And even with that high volume, he still has the 3rd highest completion percentage, 3rd best passer rating, 5th most yards per attempt. All good things. So do you think that he gets more than 250 yards against the 49ers?
Absolutely. I know him. I've watched him. He came from the Rams, and then he came to the Lions, and the coach, Dan Campbell, made him feel like how important he was, and he is going so far, and he's great. Yes.
There's no better analysis than that. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
On to the spicies. These happen in at least 48% of simulations. They have enough volatility to make the juice worth the squeeze. Normal spice levels, 2 blands and 1 spicy. My preference is 2 spicy and 1 bland. Let's go with number 1. Terry McLaurin to score a touchdown against the Falcons. I also like his yards to exceed 65.5. That is also a winner in my book. Why? Because he and Jaden Daniels have the highest passer rating among quarterback receiver duos in a season since Brady and Gronk in 2012. It's 140.
Wow. First of all, I didn't know that, but Terry McLaurin playing for the Washington Commanders, he's excellent. He's doing a great job, and I hear a lot about him on the fantasy show, and everybody wants him to do well and get the ball, so I say yes.
What do you think about his nickname, Scary Terry?
It's okay.
Okay. Number 2, Brock Bowers to score a touchdown against the Saints. It is far more likely that his yards hit over 71, but this is the spicy segment, so we're going to go to the full trip to the end zone here. If there's one thing that I know about Antonio Pierce and Scott Turner for that matter, it's that they're going to do anything to get the ball into their best playmaker's hand. Brock Bowers, that rookie, is electric. He's great. What do you think?
I think he's excellent. I've watched him play against the Chiefs, and he gave the Chiefs a run for their money. He was great. And Antonio Pierce, he's a good coach. When he played for the Giants, he was awesome. I think the combo works.
Love it. Pretty sure you're coming for my job.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Okay. Number 3, Josh Allen to rush for a touchdown against the Jets. Now, freezing rain is in the forecast, and it feels like the better option than the one I also like, which is for him to throw for at least 2 passing touchdowns. But if the weather is super bad, just go with the rushing touchdown instead. Between a big intermediate passing game advantage and the fact that his O-line has only allowed him to be sacked 14 times, the fewest in the NFL, and the trend of Buffalo scoring 30 or more points, they've done that 11 times this season. That is the most in franchise history. You could consider both, but what do you think about that rushing touchdown?
Absolutely. I do not think he will do it. It's too scary. He could get hurt.
Oh, you don't think he's going to rush for a touchdown?
No, I think he's going to pass for the 2 touch. I think they want to make sure he doesn't get hurt. And
Smart.
if it's icy, no. Now, I've watched him play the Kansas City Chiefs mostly, and they beat the Chiefs, and they were awesome. And he did run for a touchdown.
Got it.
But I don't think they want him to get hurt.
It's a fair point. Do you think the Jets are good?
No.
Okay.
They're not very good, but that still doesn't mean that the Bills want anything to happen
No,
to their
they don't want anything to happen to him, but
Right, but no.
But you just don't think the Jets are very good?
No, not at all.
Did you just wink at me? Okay. We've already played. Your team's already played. The Chiefs have already won.
Yes.
Okay. Give me one team you think is going to win this week of the remaining games.
Okay, I think the Bills will win. I think the Broncos will win.
Okay.
I do.
She's calling for the upset. Okay.
I am calling for. I like the Broncos. I've watched them play. I think they're good.
Okay.
I also think. Let me see.
You think the Lions are going to win?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The Lions are on a roll. I think Dan Campbell.
Who do you think wins between the Packers and the Vikings?
Vikings.
We're on opposite sides of this. Okay.
I do.
All right. Great. Well, listen, thank you for all of your lovely advice and your help. You're a real star on here.
Well, I enjoy coming on, and I enjoy working with my daughter any chance I can.
Do you expect payment now?
No.
I enjoy working with my daughter.
I enjoy being part of this with my daughter.
Thank you so much again for spending part of your holiday week with us. Yeah. Projections, scores, and more, they are already up. Remember, they update when the injury reports come out and as news comes out. If you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and pass it along so we can continue to grow. Do you have any parting mom words of advice for us?
Just to subscribe to this because I want my daughter to have as many followers as possible.
Jesus.
It's a good
show. Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah.
Well, how about some piece of advice like, call your mother?
Oh, everyone should be calling their mother, especially at the holidays. It's important. And I love spending time with my daughter at the holidays.
Do you have a favorite dog? She does.
No, I love...
That is such a lie. What's your favorite dog?
Well, I kind of like Gordy a little more than Clyde, only because Gordy is older and he was the firstborn.
He's the firstborn. Okay, I feel bad for Clyde.
I love Clyde though, but you put me on a spot.
Okay, well, that's what happens in life.
It is.
All right. Well, thanks, Mom.
I love you more than any other kid.
Well, okay. I mean, you only had one, so
that's right.